Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding Mountain. And today I'm going to talk to you about my top 5 back building movements for natural bodybuilders. So those of you who have been on this channel for any period of time will take it as no surprise, some of these movements, but there is one that I very rarely ever do that I do include in this list, so that way some people will benefit from it even though you don't see me do this movement that often. And I have my reasons that I will explain. So the first movement on this list is the bent over barbell row. Now, done properly, the bent over barbell row can be extremely effective for building an overall back. Done improperly, at least for your body type, such as bending over too much and stuff, will create more of a rear delt experience and maybe bicep, and you may get a little bit of trap, but you won't necessarily get those lats in because of the arc and the way that the bar travels through the movement. A lot of people are always saying like, oh, you got to do the movement right. You got to do it where your upper back is parallel to the floor. And I say, no, I did it that way. And I got next to no results in the back. I got great shoulders, but only once I started using weight, which exploited the lats and the rhomboids and traps, did I start to build a bigger back. So it's very important for you to understand that there are subtleties to these lifts that make a big difference in whether you get results or not, and they will be different for each individual person. So I'm not saying my technique's the only one, but it is worth really evaluating what is proper technique for you in order to access those lats. And the bent over barbell row is extremely effective when done right for you for building great thickness and width in the back. Now, number 2 is the bent over dumbbell row. Now, as much as this might seem like the same exercise, it's really not, because the two arms are moving independent of each other. You're able to have the arms back so that way the dumbbells are sliding up and down the sides of the leg, and this changes which muscles get activated and what type of pump you get. So I rotate these exercises all the time because although they look similar, they are different, and you will notice a different sort of feel. And sometimes just a simple thing like being able to rotate the hands like this can change everything when it comes down to what muscles you're activating and how well you are able to retract the shoulders. And shoulder retraction plays a massive role in hitting the back. And that's one thing I find most bodybuilders in this day and age, most of them have totally lost, like especially the beginners and intermediate bodybuilders. They don't understand that retraction of the shoulders is playing a major role in activation of the back. It isn't just rotation around the shoulder. If anything, I'd say rotation around the shoulder is about 30% of what activates the overall back. It's more about the retraction and sticking that chest out when you come up or when you lift the weight. Now, the third exercise, which is no surprise to you guys, is the pull-up. Now, these aren't in order of effectiveness because some people find the pull-up is better and some people like the bent over row more. But I will say the pull-up is a great exercise, especially when you are doing it in a way that you are leaning back and keeping the elbows in slightly. So some people need to use a bit more of a medium grip for this. Some people can use a wider grip, but I find a bit of a medium grip is more effective for hitting the back more effectively. Although if you're using a wider grip, you might look more impressive because your arms are spread out like an eagle, right? And some people like to use a supinated grip so that way they can get their head higher above the bar. But when you're training back and you're training the pull-up for back specifically, you're not concerned about where the head is going. You're concerned more about whether you're retracting the shoulder blades and also pulling that bar as far back as you can, but not necessarily staying vertical, right? It's okay for you to lean back in order to do this. So you get that stretch and then you lean back, stretch and then lean back. And therefore you're going to get more of a lat back-based movement from that pull-up instead of just working the biceps and the shoulders. And I learned this, of course, at the beginning of my career, or the beginning of before my career, when I was developing great biceps and shoulders, because I was doing pull-ups in a way where I was always just pulling the head over the bar and I was remaining vertical the entire time. So again, this takes a little bit of playing around with, but the pull-up can be extremely effective when it comes down to building overall lat development. Now, the next exercise that is in alignment with the pull-up is the lat pull-down. Now, the great thing about the lat pull down is that you can use lighter weight when you want to use higher reps or higher repetitions. And at the same time, because it's a cable movement, you're not having to use the stabilizers quite as much. So therefore the prime movers can come in a little bit more. So you're not worried about balancing on the bar and stuff. You're basically able to just to find that constant tension in the lat and in the major back muscles. And again, this is going to be technique based, and I've seen a lot of people use the lat pull down in a way where they let the shoulders pop up and they just round, just to bring the bar down. That's not necessarily going to bring in more lat. You might bring in some internal rotators, but you're not necessarily going to get the overall back development that you're looking for from using that sort of technique. So again, it's all about sticking that chest out and bringing that bar down, but not necessarily rotating it so that you have to touch the chest. The bar doesn't have to touch the chest in order for you to do a proper lat pull down, because whether the bar touches your chest or not is going to really depend on how you're built and also how wide or narrow your grip is. This will totally change the dynamics of how that exercise plays out. But the lat pull down, the thing I like about it is because it's a different type of tension, it's constant tension, and at the same time, you can use lighter weights and just focus on that constant tension and that deep burn without using body weight or above intensities, right? You could just use 120 pounds, 140 pounds. And like I always talk about, it's good to rotate the rep ranges and not necessarily use the same intensity all the time. It's good to access the different muscle fibers through using different intensities. Now, number 5 on my list is going to be a surprise because you never see me do this movement on this channel. Now, there's a reason. There's a reason why I don't do it. It's because I'm usually doing Romanian deadlifts quite a bit for my hamstring work, so I do get some auxiliary back work from this from time to time. But if I was a person that was not doing Romanian deadlifts and I was looking for a great back developer, I would look at the rack pull. Now, the reason why the rack pull is so great is because you can use heavy amounts of weight and you're focused on using only the range of motion, which is going to exploit the upper back and not necessarily the lower back. If you're deadlifting from the floor, what'll happen is you'll get a lot of lower back work, and a lot of times the lower back will hit failure long before the upper back does. Now, if you find that you love normal deadlifts, that's great. They can be a good overall back developer as well. But there is a reason why you see a lot of pro bodybuilders use the rack pull instead of the deadlift from the floor, because they do want to make sure the upper back is hitting failure, and when they're using these partial movements, they can use heavier weight and really overload that upper back area, especially the lats and the traps. So yeah, if you're having trouble building that upper back, it is something that will make your gym owner mad, or the manager of your gym, because you're probably going to bend some bars or make a lot of noise when you're banging the barbell onto the squat rack and so forth. But it is one of those movements where you can use heavier weight and therefore get that great stretch in the upper traps, as well as get some good overload of the lats and all the stabilizer muscles in the back and so forth. So yeah, those are my top 5 movements for building a back. I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching, and if you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the patron supporters, and take care for now. Mountain.